be helpful if I had the mic here. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Chapter 9 Book Club. I'm Christina Galvin, and Rachel is here with me, and she has the mic in the perfect position. So thank you for getting it started with the proper way.
All good, all good.
Can you tell it's a Monday? I haven't had all my coffee, and I'm talking to the person that's been up since, 2:30?
That's okay. And it's a work in progress. We're still learning as we go here.
It is. Well, so we are here to talk about banned books. It's Banned Book Month, and Rachel had picked this. I can show you right here. It is called Mouse by Art Spiegelman. And Rachel, why don't you kind of talk about why you chose to pick this book for us to read this month?
Yeah, and I think Banned Books Week and Banned Books Month is really important to talk about because, sadly, more and more books are becoming banned in schools. And, books can be really important tools to immerse students in learning about historical events. And I think
Definitely.
Mouse is a really good example because it's a graphic novel. So even those reluctant readers who might not like reading books might take something out of Mouse because it is a graphic novel, and they might find that graphic novel more appealing. And Mouse was a book that I read in probably middle school, maybe high school. I don't remember exactly, but I remember it being really powerful and sticking with me. So I thought this would be a good example. And there are so many books out there, and sadly books getting banned, that just kind of tackle some tougher issues from, racism to LGBTQ issues, in this case, Holocaust. And so, yeah, I thought it was just important that we pick a banned book to talk about for October.
I couldn't agree more. I thought this book was very intriguing and taught a lot about history in a way that, I don't want to say it was relatable, but I think it might be more digestible. A lot of the reviews say don't show your kids, but I think it's important to, kind of assess the maturity level that they're at and what they can handle as far as, digesting this information, because, it is something that happened in our history, but there is a time and place to be able to explain that history. And I think middle school was also the time that the Holocaust was a big talking point in the lesson plan for education for that age. So I do think it's an interesting take on it, and I find it interesting how books that we were so accustomed to growing up are now finding reasons to be banned. I believe this one was banned in 2022, I want to say, in Tennessee. More often you're seeing certain states deciding that, I think New York remains pretty liberal when it comes to what books are, still available for kids to read. But speaking of Banned Books Month, Parthenon Books in downtown Syracuse is pretty big on it. They have a whole section on that, and we had the privilege to be able to head downtown to interview one of the co-owners, and Rachel set that up, and I thought that was such a really cool idea to be able to talk to them and all the collaborations that they do, especially with downtown Syracuse.
We are inside Parthenon Books now in downtown Syracuse, and we're joined by the co-owner, Ann Duddy. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for coming.
Absolutely. So first, you guys are the first independent bookstore to downtown Syracuse in 30 years.
Yep, that's correct.
How does that feel?
It feels good. That Syracuse has needed this bookstore for a long time, in my opinion.
Why do you say that?
I think Syracuse needs an independent bookstore because a lot of major cities, particularly college towns, have that. And there's been, except for some used bookstores, it's been a bit of a independent bookstore desert. And as you know, we have a lot of Barnes and Nobles here. So that's always been kind of intense for the competition. But we have people that really are dedicated to wanting to shop independent, wanting to shop local. And they appreciate us being here as an alternative.
And I like that you mentioned the shop local. When people stroll downtown, they have so many unique shops. There's Wildflower, What can people expect when they walk into Parthenon?
First of all, we have a cafe, which is great. We sell Cafe Blue pastries and Salt City coffee, so we try to keep local in that area as well. We have books, obviously, and we cover most genres. We have nonfiction, we have fiction, we have local authors, we have book clubs, we have author readings. We coordinate with the art house to do art displays in the back. We just try to work with the shops within the community to either we send people over to other shops for stuff that we don't have, so we make those recommendations because we want to keep people shopping downtown to not just come to Parthenon Books, get in the car and go home.
Right.
So if they're going to do that, they're just going to go to the mall and go to Barnes & Noble. So we really work with the community shops to make sure that people are going around town. And yeah, it's mostly we have books. That's our big thing.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. And we were talking about, we started this book club for Channel 9, for Chapter 9 book club, and there's so many book clubs around. You guys, when you go to your website, not only do you have book clubs here, you host them. Kind of just talk a little bit about that. It's really cool.
Yeah, we have a number of book clubs that cover different genres. We have a literary fiction called Lattes and Literature. We work with Focal to do a book club for their author series. We also have nonfiction called It Really Happened, which some of the stuff is local history that the coordinator of it gets local authors in to do Q&As, which we do with some of the other book clubs as well. We have a darker literature club called Unhappy Hour, and we have Here and Queer, which is kind of self-explanatory, so. And
One of the ones that I really liked was It Really Happened. I love that title because it's just, it makes sense with it being nonfiction. Yeah, it really happened.
It really happened. And she focuses on some very kind of obscure history, whether it's local or if it's, if it's outside of the area, if it's books about things that people don't know that much about.
Sure. Right. And if someone's watching or listening and they're like, I want to join one of these book clubs, can they just show up?
They can just show up. It's on our website. We have our book clubs listed. Choose the one you want to come to. We mention book club when you come in and purchase the book, and we give a discount on the book, and we give a discount in the cafe on the day of the club.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. And speaking of your website, when you go on there, it's very user-friendly. It kind of addresses, hey, if you're looking for one book, see if we have it. And then author-friendly, too, especially local authors probably trying to get their name out there. You actually have a section where you could submit potentially to have an author's book inside of the store, right?
That's very true. And we also do take emails if people want to email info@parthenonbookstore.com when they want to host a book author reading here, or sometimes people call, which is a little more difficult because us being a store, I'm not like sitting in an office taking phone calls. I might be in the middle of stuff. So it's always best check our website, submit that way, or send us an email.
Yeah, it's really cool. And, being here, it has such a really acute vibe. Like, people have to really come to feel it and see it for themselves. But talking on a broader level, how do bookstores bring people together? How do bookstores bring the community together?
That is a tough one because I think because of the pandemic, people are not as eager to get out of the house as they used to be. So a bookstore with the cafe, people come in and sit and work. They come in and read. They come and they participate in the events. We also have a monthly event called Right Now with Linda Lowen, and she does prompts for stories and stuff, and people sit here and write, and it attracts a lot of people. So the events, the author readings, everything, all these things bring people in. But for the most part, it's very tough. It's so easy to say, yeah, I'll go see this author in real life, and then be like, well, it's kind of cold outside, and author did an interview on YouTube, so I'll watch that instead. So I just think people need to get out. They need to reconnect, and I think a bookstore is really good for that.
Absolutely.
I do too, because it brings people from all ages, all backgrounds together, and this store seems like such a welcoming and safe place to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so it's been a little over 3 years. And what are you finding? Is business booming? Are you trying to bring people in? What would your message be to the community?
My message to the community is don't be scared of downtown. There's plenty of parking. If you have to park around the corner, that's fine. Downtown is coming back. It's a shopping destination. There's cool stuff down here that you're not going to find at the mall. There's local stuff down here that you're not going to find at the mall. Come down, come to the bookstore, see what we have to offer, see what downtown has to offer.
Sure. So something, a topic that's near and dear to my heart, Banned Books Week and Banned Books Month. And we, for our book this month, we are rereading for us Mouse which is, a classic.
Sure.
I did notice you have your banned books display here. Tell me a little bit about why you have this display and kind of some of the feedback you've been getting thus far.
People are always coming in and asking for banned books. And, because we have a banned books month or week doesn't mean that they're not banned for the rest of the year.
Sure.
We have been lucky. We have not been under pressure from groups wanting us to remove books from our shelves, but I know that the library struggles with that a lot more than we do. So we've made it very clear that we are, like you had mentioned, a safe space. We're going to carry these books. We're not going to stop carrying books because people don't like them. If they don't like them, they don't have to buy them.
What have you been noticing, especially maybe because it's spooky season? Are there any books that are kind of trending right now, or a category of books?
That's a good question. I mean, horror is big all year round here. I think
That's
it's
our
just
favorite genre.
Yeah,
so
we
I
live
can
for
definitely
it.
see that.
Yeah, I think there's something about Syracuse with the long winters. And
Yeah.
it's just kind of the, I want to read something that's just going to make me feel a little bit better about my life when there's 20 feet of snow on the ground.
Fair enough.
But
True.
yeah, so horror's really big year round. As far as books that are trending right now, Halloween-wise, I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. Linus over here is my horror expert.
I was going to say, maybe tell them just come in and see for yourself.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And in fact, speaking of Halloween, we are doing an event with the Central New York. Let me rephrase that. We're doing an event with the Central New York Cat Coalition, and we're doing an adoption event, and it's going to be Meowloween is what we're calling it. It's going to be I'm not really sure the date. I'll have to look that up. But we're going to have cats here, black cats, orange cats, little pumpkins. And they're going to be taking applications for adoption and donations, and there's going to be discounts in the store for that.
I think it's so cool how you are constantly partnering with other Syracuse local places. How important is it for the bookstore to be able to have those partnerships, throughout the year?
I think beyond how important it is for the bookstore, I think it's important for Syracuse.
Yeah.
Because I think it is important for the bookstore, because if Landmark's got a play going on, someone might want to come over here and find a biography of Hamilton or something like that. So we try to carry books that coordinate with what they're doing. We do share social media with Bank Alley and with Wildflowers, and if we don't have something here, if someone's looking for something specific that we don't carry, I can send them around the corner to the Black Citizens Brigade, or send them to, Books End if they're looking for something that's older and rare, or send somebody over to Golden Bee because they're looking for romance or fantasy that we don't carry. So, those kind of partnerships are really important.
Awesome. Well, I think that does it for us.
Okay.
Downtown is a happening and fun place. Thank you so much for joining us and Duddy at Parthenon Books. We appreciate you.
Thanks.
So such a cool bookstore there. I thought that was really interesting how they collaborated with all the that art show that they have coming up. I thought that was really cool. I had gone with Josh to the bookstore about a month ago, and I could tell that they were getting something started because things were more empty. And I never take empty bookshelves as a bad sign. I think that it's just kind of they're making room for something else.
Totally,
And then
totally.
once we went back, I realized that that's what their plan was to do, was to kind of shift the store around to make room for that art collection. So that was really cool.
Yeah, and really cool too. They partner with Focal, who we've interviewed in the past. So they have that section there from the Friends of the Central Library, and you can see some of the different authors that are going to be visiting Syracuse this year, which is really exciting. Pulitzer Prize-winning author Percival Everett, Natasha Alford, a Syracuse native. So really cool there. And yeah, it's a great location. We just touched on it there, but right by the Landmark, Oh My Darling. So I think it is part of that revitalization initiative happening in downtown Syracuse, which is also really cool to see.
I think it's really cool. And back to our whole theme of
Yes.
this show, Banned Books Week, month. There's a lot of highlighting in the month of October. Mouse, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the books, the themes, and just the overall message, and why, at least we thought, it was important to keep sharing. And welcome back to Chapter 9 Book Club. Rachel here with me, and we are diving into the book Mouse to talk about more about the lessons that are in this book and just the theme of Banned Book Month. So,
Yeah.
Rachel, kind of just your overall thoughts on this book. It's at such an important time of history and such a unique way to tell it.
Yeah, no, I think it's an incredible book, and I think it's really tough to read, but history can be uncomfortable. History can be painful, and I don't think we should be watering down history so that it's, more easily digestible to children. And I think Mouse is just such a powerful book, and the visual depictions tell this story in such a unique way. There are a lot of books out there that dive into the Holocaust, and I would argue to say there's nothing quite like Mouse. And I think Art Spiegelman does it in such a way that it's not watering down history. I think the emotion really comes across even through these depictions of mice and pigs and cats. And I think, yes, there might be some profanity in there, or I think like some school districts had said they banned it because of nudity. I don't think any of that is enough to ban this book. And I thought it was really powerful and just a really important read for kids and adults alike.
Yeah, and I think that you had touched a little bit upon it, the symbolism of the different animals representing different members of that society, with, the Jews being mice, the Polish being pigs, and of course, the German Nazis being cats. It's so symbolic. It reminds me so much of what we kind of learned. It gives me kind of, Animal Farm type understanding when you were in that period of school, where I think that was such a great way of being able to explain Marxism and, communism. And I thought that was just so interesting that this kind of resonated with me the second I started reading it, because I remember going back to 10th grade social studies in English when you learned about that time period.
Totally.
And I think that Art did such an incredible job of being able to help digest the story because of being able to do that. And I thought it was so interesting when Art's father and his mother had to go through so much in this, at least first, because you have said to me that there are multiple Maos, because when you read this book, you realize it's only just the beginning.
Right.
Everything that they've been through when they had to just kind of take those steps to survive. They have those masks on of the pigs. I thought that was genius to be able to explain how they kind of hid their identities to survive. I thought that was such a great way of showcasing the storytelling. I also thought it was very relatable, too, because this actually happened, where he talked to his dad about the experiences, and they had to stop so many different times, whether it was the end of the day or the father was getting tired. He suffered 2 heart attacks.
Yeah.
That it almost helped the viewer digest it too. So many critiques said that you can read this in one sitting, but I don't know about you, but I just couldn't. I had to take breaks too. It's a lot to process, even though it's not new information, but it's being told in a different way. I think if you listen to every single Holocaust survivor story, the sentiment would be the same, but the pain would be just reflected so differently among each person.
Right. And I think they did a good job, too, of not making the dad a hero, per se. Vladek definitely had his flaws, and Art didn't shy away from that. And even Art has his flaws, and he doesn't shy away from that. Like, I like the parts of the book where he's saying, like, how am I going to write this? And how am I going to get this out there? And like, all right, Dad, enough complaining about Mala. Let's move on to Auschwitz now. I feel like all of our characters were flawed in some way. Nobody was like the perfect hero, which I also thought made it more relatable and more realistic. And he even says, like, okay, I'm going to do the tape recording now. Like, I like that he showed us his process in writing the book, which was interesting. And sometimes in books, I don't really like when they bounce back and forth, but I thought it was fine here. I never maybe because it was the Holocaust, I never got confused or anything like that from when we were jumping back and forth in time. So I liked that storytelling technique that he chose as well.
Sure. And I really love the brutal honesty that came with the storytelling, because I think Art's parents have been able to get through so many stages, and they admit it because of their wealth.
Mm-hmm.
They have been able to, buy shelter. They've been able to buy someone hiding them. The families that are hiding them were not doing it for the care of their own being. It was to get paid. It was just when you were younger and don't think that something like this could possibly happen. This first book was an incredible explanation of all the steps that kind of went into, like, it didn't go straight from, let me just tell you about my time in Auschwitz. There were so many steps that went into the process before they made it to the camp, because that's actually the reality of it. They were papers, but essentially, the Nazis wanted to take the steps that they did to eventually get as many Jewish people as possible to the camp. But they had to go through so many different steps in order to get to that point. So many different places they hid, it was just, I was not that familiar with everything that led up to it. They almost streamlined it in school, which no fault to them, because they went to the most, I don't want to say important part, but the most, dehumanized part of the point in history. But there was so much politics involved before getting to that point, which was new to me.
Yeah, and I just started rereading the part 2, which is A Survivor's Tale, and Here My Troubles Began. And I will say that theme even continues at Auschwitz. One of the parts I was rereading last night shows when Vladek is there, and one of the capo officers gives him like a nicer uniform and nicer shoes in exchange for him teaching him English. So again, like, either whether it's wealth or intelligence, it kind of shows how that helped them survive. Which is also just another piece that you don't really think about, or might not have seen that part or learned about that part in elementary school either.
Absolutely. And I just want to talk about the prologue scene when Art was little and his friends left him behind after he tripped, and it was a really nice setup by Art to explain the disconnect that he has had with his father over the years. His father essentially was like, you don't know pain. You don't know, like, those aren't your real friends, and you'll know what not having real friends is like, because he was betrayed so many times in his upbringing. And sure, his father has gone through hell and back through what has gone, but he was a little boy and he never understood anything yet. That I'm sure he knew nothing of what his father had to survive, and he just knew that it was his dad not being able to comfort him. And I thought that was really interesting how when he gets to know his father through the stories, to be able to tell them that he's learning so much about his father's life as an adult.
I looked up too, I was curious if Art Spiegelman, because he's in his 70s now, if he responded to any of these book bans happening now, like in the 2020s. And he responded, I think it was a 2023 article I found, and he joked darkly that schools wanted a, quote, a kinder, gentler, fuzzier Holocaust to teach their children. And I just feel like that kind of hits the nail on the head with what's wrong with banning books in this day and age, and how, like, we have to talk about uncomfortable history and talk about painful history. And just to touch on that, I found a 2024-2025 report from PEN America, and PEN America works to promote freedom of expression in the literary space. They said there were 6,800 instances of book bans across 23 states and 87 public schools in the 2024-2025 school year. So this is happening. This is it's a common trend, even if we're not fortunately seeing it in New York. So I am really glad that we're talking about this, because again, I don't think it's not really a comfortable thing to talk about either, but I think it's important that we do.
I do too, and I have always loved reading books, but so much of my education has been shaped from literature that has had those uncomfortable conversations. I think the Holocaust was the first not even. That's even to say that's jumping way ahead. We learned about slavery so much earlier on in our education. I remember even as soon as elementary school, the triangle trade, you learn about those uncomfortable conversations, and you are in a way stripping innocence, but wouldn't you want to do that in the safety of your educational walls? Like
Right.
schools, in my opinion, is the place to have that, and a good set of parents or parent or guardian should have those difficult conversations with your kids after the kids come home and say, I learned about slavery. I don't know, I'm not a parent yet, in Brooklyn's so young, but I'm sure when your child comes home after a difficult processing day at school, in my eyes, I think the right thing to do is to open those doors for them to have those questions, because that's, I feel like, where you have the opportunity to really teach them proper values and acceptance of people that aren't looking or acting or make as much as them, people that are different. And to Art's point, you shouldn't have to make this warm and fuzzy, because it was anything but a warm and fuzzy time, but it happened.
Right.
And the reason why we talk about it is so it doesn't happen again.
Right.
And that leads kind of to, I'm just going to do a quick preview before we jump too far ahead. This is going to be our next book. It's called James. Anybody that knows Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, the two troublemakers from Missouri, this is actually the tale of Jim, Huckleberry Finn's family's slave, and it is just, we got started a little bit because we wanted to kind of get the gist of what the story's about. Rach, you're listening to the audiobook too, right?
Yeah, I'm listening to the audiobook. It's really powerful so far.
Incredible start.
Yeah, only a couple chapters in, but it's just a total reimagining of, the Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer that you might be used to. And again, just starting it, but I think it's going to be a really powerful read.
And I will warn you, some people don't love reading about the uncomfortable conversations, and there are plenty of them in this book, but mind you, I think that just being able to get that perspective is just so eye-opening. I think it's such a wonderful way to realize, because you're sometimes just so used to getting stuck in your own bubble, getting burst through that bubble and getting to see the rest of the world is such a, I just think that's why books should be freely expressed and opened and welcome. And sure, there is a time and age for certain things, but that's why you have those open line of communications with those that are pretty new to the topic, like either children or people that just haven't experienced or heard of such parts of life. I find everything that was told through the eyes of Art and his dad to be just such an important part of history, told in a way that is digestible to somebody that may have not experienced anything like it, which we're thankful to have said. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for another chapter of Chapter 9 Book Club and for reading Beyond the Prompter with us.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.